it's slightly dangerous terrain, but I can throw one thought out. I looked into this some years ago when the statues started coming down in 2020. And there are some places where I think there was like very weird overreach. And I can understand some places where some locals might have like got resentful about that. If you go to Monument Avenue in Richmond, there are no monuments. It's just an avenue with a lot of like stone bases on which you could put a statue at some point, but there aren't. And if you're into plinths, it's a great place. Just a lovely place. And in fact, the only statue that is still there is, what's his name? Arthur Ashe, the tennis player.
Arthur Ashe?
Yeah, so there's a big statue of him. It's the only one still standing. And he's got a child kneeling there with a book, and he's got the tennis racket up. And unfortunately, it looks like he's about to beat the child. But it's just, I can...
Bill, a well-known host famous for his sharp humor and bold conversations, invited a panel that included Douglas Murray, a British writer and cultural critic. Together, they talked about important issues facing society today. Their discussion covered topics like the backlash against efforts to re-examine history, the growing gap between rich and poor, and public health challenges. They showed how society struggles to balance moving forward while respecting traditions. Douglas Murray's critical views on culture and politics, along with Bill's skill in questioning strong opinions, gave the conversation depth. They both pointed out how hard it is to find middle ground solutions in today's divided world. Their talk wasn't just about current events. It encouraged people to have honest, thoughtful discussions, even about uncomfortable topics. Let's wait and see where these conversations lead.
My point is, I can understand if I were a local, I might have got a bit annoyed about this. Yeah.
But I think it's worth remembering that the Confederacy celebrated slave owning. And these statues weren't built during the Confederacy. Sure. They were built when the Jim Crow laws were being enforced and segregation was really being enforced. So I think we need to know our history and honor our history, but I can understand how it would be tough to live in a town that is celebrating people who really thought that slavery was a great thing.
Well, everybody thought that, by the way. I mean, I agree. Now, first of all, to re-put the statue up?
No, that's
sure. Great. I mean,
yeah.
But you can do what museums call retain and explain. I mean, you say we need to know our history. How are people going to know their history if there's no statues representing anything that happened except for one side? I mean, in most countries, like France, for instance, France said in 2020, the president himself said, we will take down no statues, we need to know all of our history. And that's
in
to explain
the Soviet Union, should they have kept the statues of Marx and Lenin up after Russia became a republic?
They did. I've been to them. There are lots of the former Soviet republics put all the statues in a park, for instance, where you could then go to look at them. And that's
a museum would be great.
Right, it is.
But a lot of the statues we're talking about are not explanations, they're venerations.
Sure,
celebrations.
Exactly.
And if they're celebrating, as you just spoke so eloquently to, if they're celebrating things like slavery and the Confederacy, then I think it's worth having a conversation about whether they belong.
In Virginia, some schools are bringing back Confederate names, sparking heated debates about how we remember history and what values we should stand for today. Many people see this move as a pushback against diversity and equality efforts. Eric Schlosser explained that most Confederate monuments and school names didn't appear during the Civil War itself, but were put up later during the Jim Crow era to promote segregation and white supremacy. On the other hand, Douglas Murray and Bill argue that keeping historical names and statues can be useful for education, as long as they're presented in the right context, not as celebrations of the past, but as learning tools. This debate shows the ongoing struggle. How do we remember history without celebrating its darker sides? Finding a balance between preserving history and respecting modern values is proving to be very difficult.
And they were traitors.
And they were traitors.
They were traitors. This was a war against a secessionist.
Yeah, but people also have to remember, I mean, look, there are obviously cases like that, where, like Stonewall Jackson, I don't think you particularly need to have a school named after. But, don't forget in 2020, this rampage went all the way through to any high school named after Thomas Jefferson.
Right.
Well,
So
there's a logic.
Right.
And it can get out of hand. But,
And it got out of hand very fast.
You were talking about what might happen with the Trump administration. I hope that we're not going to have in Monument Valley the January 6th insurrectionists and what was the guy with the horns? Statues of those rebels.
I could see.
But he will get them out of jail.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
He will pardon them.
But I mean, again, on the slavery thing, don't put up statues of traitors who supported slavery, but also teach kids the truth.
Yeah.
Slavery was a horrible thing that everybody in the world did, including people of color in other parts of the world. It's all through the Bible. Every civilization did it. They didn't even think it was wrong. There's no laws against it in the Bible. There's a lot of laws about it, and nobody ever goes, oh, maybe we should just not do it. Never crossed their mind.
Right.
Again, teach the whole story would be my
absolutely.
The panel also focused on the importance of teaching history honestly. They stressed that schools should teach both the good and the bad parts of history, including the harsh truths about slavery and systemic injustice. Douglas Murray suggested that statues and monuments should be kept, but moved to places like museums, where they can be properly explained. This way, people can learn from the past instead of ignoring it. Teaching history in a complete and honest way can help people understand each other better, heal old wounds, and build a fairer future.
How does our tiered economy, this is for you, Frank, contribute to people's sense of grievance? Oh, yeah, that's in your book.
Yeah, no, I write a lot about that in the book. I think one of the things that's happened to us is our economy has become such an engine of envy, right? Our service economy is tiered in a fine-grained way that it never was before. When I was a teenager and I went to a rock concert, I remember getting up at 3 a.m. and going to the Hartford Civic Center, that's what it was called at the
Who
time.
were you seeing? I have to know.
Queen. And I'll tell you, right, but here's the thing, there were basically 3 sets of seats. There were 3 ticket prices.
Right.
And if you wanted to sit, as I did, close to the stage, I got 8th row. What you did wasn't shell out $10,000 or more as people do for one of the like $250, $350 prices for a Taylor Swift ticket. You actually went in a quasi-egalitarian way and you stood outside online. Got into the 8th row, caught Freddie Mercury's tambourine when he threw it out at the end of the show. Those were.
I still got it.
So what happens? I ended up losing it over time, which is a terrible.
Suddenly
story.
it's the Kelly Clarkson show.
But you take the Taylor Swift concerts as an example, right? People are paying so many different prices, and then they are going on their social media feeds and they're posting pictures of how close to the stage they were. Sometimes it's a family of 6. You're looking at $10,000 shelled out for one evening.
Sure.
We are more aware of the people who live on the echelon above us, the echelon above them, the echelon above that. It is in our faces in social media all the time, and I think it fills us with envy and drives us apart. It's part of our grievance culture.
Yes.
The conversation also touched on economic inequality and what's called grievance culture, when people feel increasingly upset about unfairness. Frank Bruni talked about how big differences in wealth, made worse by social media, cause feelings of jealousy and exclusion. He used examples like the super high prices of Taylor Swift concert tickets to show how money divides people. Social media constantly shows off the lifestyles of the rich, making many people feel left out or not good enough. The panel discussed how these growing gaps between rich and poor hurt social unity and people's mental health. They suggested that we all need to think more carefully about how money and consumer culture affect society. If you enjoyed this summary and want more simple explanations of important social, cultural, and political topics, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. We'd also love to hear your thoughts. What's your opinion on history education, economic inequality, or cultural debates? Share your ideas in the comments below. Thanks for watching and being part of our community. See you next time.